Welcome to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor. She's an HR powerhouse and certified mediator in the CSRA. Conflict is everywhere, in our homes, our day-to-day transactions, and especially in the workplace, where good HR processes and policies can fall short. Save time, save money. Don't rush to litigate, mediate. Visit brownstonemediation.com. Now here's TeKay and Neil.
There are now three absolutes in life: death, taxes, and
conflict.
It's amazing. I don't care for conflict, but I guess we can't escape it, can we?
You wouldn't be the norm.
Yeah, you're right about that. I'm so pleased to welcome TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation, and welcome to the new program, Let's Work It Out. And conflict, they say, find the win-win, but that's not always the case.
Well, we want to give you a new type of win.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. And during the course of our first program, we're going to introduce you to her and give a little bit about her background and talk about the different types of mediation. Mm-hmm. And why don't we just get started with defining what is mediation?
Mediation is, the formal term is a form of ADR, alternative dispute resolution.
Okay.
And when you think of an alternative to what? Alternative to our normal, what we know as the litigation process, the legal process. So an alternative to the courtroom, alternative to litigation, really.
Okay. So why don't we put our folks in the chair when I sit down and I go through mediation and you're there and somebody that I have a conflict is there. What is it like?
Well, I can say this, Neil. Not one I have facilitated has ever been the same.
Okay.
So let's start there, not one. But there are basic principles that every mediation should accomplish. Mm-hmm. And one of those is a professional like myself, who we call ourselves neutral. Mm-hmm. Meaning we're not there to represent any particular party. Mm-hmm. And with that, our role is to help those parties who, up to that point, have had challenges being able to communicate in a meaningful way to both reach the goal, whatever their position is in that particular dispute. And so we use that third party. We like to say third party mediator, a third party to that particular situation, to assist in helping them navigate and make some progress with the issue that they've encountered.
And of course, court is very expensive. I know I've paid $300-400 an hour to business attorneys. So can you kind of compare in terms of what the costs are if you have to go through the legal process versus mediation?
Absolutely. There's certainly indirect costs as well as you said, financial costs. And so that's the biggest one, because everyone, that's the first question that they have.
What's it going to cost?
What's it going to cost? How much is it going to cost? How much money are you going to save me? And that's the one thing that we say in mediation: save time, save money, mediate, don't litigate. And so certainly money is going to be a huge factor. And the easiest way to see that is the way our process is structured, is that if you do go the legal way with attorneys, and not to say there's nothing wrong with attorneys, but if you go with attorneys, one attorney, unlike a mediator, cannot represent both parties. So that means out the gate, you're already having to have two additional professionals. And so certainly there. And then the indirect cost that I'd like to share is the time. Mm-hmm. And these days, time is money.
Oh, no question.
Having to take away from work, having to take away from family. So time is money. The benefit of it being private versus public, everything done in a court system is public. And so there's public record. We have to create a public record with it. So there's no confidentiality. And that's the one of the great benefits of mediation, why we see a lot of entertainment, that world really go the mediation route, because they are afforded that confidentiality.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Nutty question. how did you come up with your name?
How did I come up with my name? It's a play on several things.
Okay.
So we're Brownstone Mediation. So certainly Brownstone is the unique part of what we do, because mediation and services, you'll find that anywhere. But Brownstone is a play off my name.
Brown.
Last
TeKay
name Brown. And our motto is the cornerstone of resolution and reconciliation. And when you think about mediation, one, it always involves a dispute. That's the whole purpose of mediation, is to resolve a situation. So there's always going to be two things: the relationship part and the actual issue part of the mediation. The issue is going to be what that particular dispute is about. And the relation is going to be whether those individuals want to maintain that relationship. Sometimes you're in conflict with someone, you're in a dispute, you just want that issue resolved. Other times there is a need, a desire, an advantage, if you will, beyond the individuals of why you want to stay in relationship. And so that's how we came to Brownstone, because we believe in the cornerstone. We know that cornerstone is the foundation. And so the intersection of where resolution meets reconciliation, relationship meets issue, there you have Brownstone mediation, cornerstone of resolution and reconciliation.
Always better to preserve the relationship for sure. Now, next up, how TeKay went from doing HR work almost 20 years ago to running Brownstone Mediation, as Let's Work It Out rolls on.
You're listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. Family, business, your workplace. What is conflict costing you? Visit brownstonemediation.com to see how you can find a resolution and maybe even a reconciliation of a broken relationship. That's brownstonemediation.com.
We're back with a native of the Show Me State,
Yes.
I guess. St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri.
I can see the arches.
The arch?
Right? And
That's what we're known for.
Busch Stadium. It's such a wonderful community. And I know you were part of helping the next generation of students and the people who taught them. That kind of kicked everything off for you with conflicts and HR and all that. Tell us about that.
So that's where I gained, you're right, I started my HR career working for a school district, Pattonville School District in St. Louis, Missouri, a little suburb outside of the city of St. Louis. And I actually started working in Pattonville in the accounting and purchasing. So I was buying and contracting all of the tools and resources for the maintenance department. My undergraduate degree, I have an undergraduate degree in HR, Management Organizational Behavior, which is a field of HR, but also accounting. And so my first job out of the gate was accounting. So I went to Pattonville, and it was the superintendent of HR at the time, Dr. Morgan, who had been with the school district, God rest his soul. He met me, saw me, and said, "You need to come work for me." And he pulled me after a year and a half over into the HR department. I spent almost 10 years, 7 or 8 years with Pattonville School District before I relocated. But yes, we were hiring, also firing. We were doing all things HR related. We were a small team of 4 that ran the school district from an HR perspective, from administrators, support staff, educators. I really got my footwork, my foundation in Pattonville School District and being a great HR leader.
What kind of conflicts did you come across?
The most conflict that we dealt with was around contracts. As you can imagine, with PTAs and unions,
right,
within the school district. So we had a very strong union in the Pattonville School District, and so that was a lot of the work. But conflicts around just complaints, employee issues. Every organization has employee issues. And so employee relations, how a situation wasn't handled well or could have been handled more meaningfully. Promotion. There's always dissent over I should have been promoted, or how do I get promoted, or why haven't I been promoted? And so all of these normal day-to-day employee relation issues, and also the community. When you run a school district, especially for that particular school district, which was one of the 2 unique things, it was one of the last VITA programs, and that was a volunteer transfer program. So that was busing youth out of the inner city to the county, one of the last ones in the state of Missouri. And then also, Pattonville was one of the last schools to have a traditional school, K through 8. So primary all the way to 8th grade. So now most schools have the pre-K, elementary, and middle and high. And so Pattonville at that time was still one of the K through 8. And so it was very community oriented. And so the community were involved in everything. And so as you can imagine, we had a lot of, whether we were hiring principals, the community had a day, a night to come and participate in that process and ask questions and that. And so we had great leaders. Dr. Morgan, to this day, was one of my greatest mentors. And I am great. I'm a superstar. I like to say I'm a HR shero because of his foundation. So
now, when did the armed services come into play?
So I was already in the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force 22 years. I am still actively serving. And I was prior enlisted. I worked on fighter aircraft. Little country girl from New Madrid, Missouri. Worked on fighter aircraft my enlisted career. And then I commissioned as a personnel officer. And at that time, the Air Force was merging career fields. And so those that are familiar with the Air Force structure, that was when FSS, Force Support Squadron, became one where it encompassed services, manpower, personnel, all of those different career fields into one. And so I was unique in that I was in the second class where they were really developing based on those of us who were new to the career field that were going through that particular class. So I've been a personnel officer my entire military career, and here I am today still sitting in an A1, which is, the military likes to use acronyms.
Yeah.
Which is short for personnel. So.
Wow. So what types of conflicts did you come across with the Air Force?
So I served as the Equal Opportunity Director for well over 5 years, and even when I physically stepped out of that role, I was still advising our one-star at the time because I was the most qualified person in the state, if you will. And so that was all things related to equal opportunity, discrimination, unlawful discrimination to be more specific, and then also human relations education, sexual harassment. So all of those cases that were complaints, it was my job to lead a team to either substantiate those and or even if we weren't unable to substantiate, if there was a complaint, my philosophy is there's a person that's unsatisfied, unhappy in the organization, and certainly there's opportunity from a leadership and an organizational standpoint to still get in there and do some work.
So I'm pleased to know you and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And
that means a lot.
I have a bonus daughter who's in the Air Force in Minot, North Dakota.
Air power.
Yeah, and special forces and the missiles and the whole, but she's safe and everything's great. And the expression is, why not Minot? To try to recruit HR, to try to recruit people there. And of course, we're in Georgia, and I'm always saying to Ellie, why not Florida? Come closer a little bit. So maybe that'll be the case. But she's worked through personnel situations and moved and had different jobs, which is fantastic. So again, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And so you transitioned from Missouri and you made your way here.
I did.
Yeah.
I always jokingly share with individuals when I say where I'm from and I live here in Georgia, and they say, well, why'd you relocate? How'd you end up here? And I always jokingly say, there's 2 reasons when someone's not a native.
Right?
Love or money.
Love or money. Either you took a big promotion or you couldn't live without them.
You couldn't live without them. And so mine was certainly love. I had transferred from St. Louis, our base in St. Louis, the 131st Bum Wing was BRACT at the time. I went up to Whiteman Air Force Base and served a few years and got an opportunity in Florida. And so certainly being closer to Florida, my then boyfriend, now husband of 10 plus years, was here in Georgia working for the Department of Defense. And so that's how I ended here in Georgia, for love.
Wonderful. Well, here's a tribute to TeKay. Of all the companies to work for and to hire her in a key role, I believe it is the largest corporate employer in our area. If you take away the military or SRS kind of, ADP.
Fortune 5.
About roughly how many employees in the Augusta area?
I would say close to 2,000. When I was there, it was right at 2,000, right under 2,000. But during seasonal, the benefits at the end of the year, open enrollment, we would bring in additional staffing. We didn't own those particular employees, but certainly they were in our building and we were somewhat responsible for them. But I'm sure well over 2,000 that are in that building.
So this is when you really took HR to the next level.
I did. I did.
What was your role?
I was the HR business partner there, and so I supported the general manager, and we had a senior director. So there's several business units within. For those that are familiar with ADP, although they're known as a payroll company, they do so much more, from retirements to pay, compensation, all those different things, from national accounts all the way down to small business accounts. And so each of those business units, we supported them, myself and another HR manager. And so we did employee relations for that entire building of associates. And so I was able to excel in that role because of the strong foundation I had at the school district. And we saw all types of issues. Was really proud of my work at ADP. The associates created a peer award for leaders and associates, and I, to this day, believe I am the only HR professional, meaning HR in a traditional HR business partner role, to have received the Women Making a Difference award, which is a company award, and it's peer, the leaders and the associates of that particular site nominated you and selected you. And so I'm really proud of the work that I did while I was at ADP. Lots of relationships here in Augusta that was formed through my work there.
And through our 13-week program, we'll talk more about HR and fractionalized services if you don't have an HR department. TeKay can definitely help. But next up, she's going to walk us through the 3 kinds of mediation, and I'm just going to say Hatfields and the McCoys are one of them. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. Family, business, your workplace. What is conflict costing you? Visit brownstonemediation.com to see how you can find a resolution and maybe even a reconciliation of a broken relationship. That's brownstonemediation.com.
Well, welcome back to Let's Work It Out. We're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of mediation, and you say there's really like 3 basic kinds of mediation
that we specialize in. Brownstone Mediation Services. There are 3 that we hyper focus on. Yes.
Yeah, and of course we work for our families, so we'll start on the family part: divorce and child custody,
estate, sibling issues, any familial type dispute. And we know today the family is not the traditional or what we know family to be. So family could be not blood related, if you will, but any type of relationship in a familial type setting. It could be friends. We would bucket that under family mediation, and essentially that is more relationship mediation, personal mediation, individual mediation.
So the lovely young lady behind the camera is wife number 2. I had a wife number 1 and it didn't work out, and we actually went through I think one attorney was trying to do it uncontested, but we were both saying like he was favoritizing one or the other. It was a conflict of interest. It didn't feel like it worked. How does mediation for formerly married couples work? How can you make it work?
Well, I will first start with the question. The answer to that is that I do not believe families belong in court.
Okay.
Court serves a purpose, but for those type issues, I don't believe that as an experienced professional that families being pitted as plaintiff and defendant, that mindset automatically sets us off into this adversarial way. And I can also share with you is that, at least from my experience, is oftentimes the mediation from a legal standpoint feels more like a settlement conference as opposed to more of really working with the conflict behaviors. And so mediation allows we don't have the legal rules, for lack of better words, is the word I'll use here. We don't have that in mediation, meaning depositions, evidence. I'm not concerned about evidence. I'm not concerned about you proving your case. Although sometimes that context and that background is supportive and it's helpful, it's not needed to get you where you need to be. And in most divorce situations, and that's the example you use, especially if there's children involved, it's my job to put what's important based on those parties, what they share individually and collectively is the most important for that process for them, for them engaging in the mediation process. And oftentimes it's the children. And so my job is to help them put the children dead set, smack right in the middle. And because we naturally are in that self-preservation mode. We are there to self-preserve what it is we're interested in, what it is we want. And our children get lost in that process from a divorce standpoint if children are involved.
Can you think of a mediation with a husband and a wife where they had this aha moment where they realized it wasn't about them, it was about one of their children or their children, and there was a real resolution and reconciliation, and how did it end up being?
I can give you a number of cases, but one that resonates when you said that resonates with me most is when I have a husband who he and wife have been going through this, probably on their second set of attorneys, probably have went through mediation before and may not have a great sense of and confidence in the mediation. And through that process, get to a place where they're completely satisfied with where they end in a final agreement, a mediation settlement agreement. But he entering into that process, having consulted, maybe gone through the first session with us and saying, I really want my wife to be comfortable. I want to make sure she feels like she's heard. I want to make sure that she feels like she's getting what she needs, or vice versa. The wife to come with that perspective.
Wow.
Usually it's the man. Most of my experience has been with the husband coming with that change of perspective, and that's after they've been at it, like clawing for a little while.
Yeah.
And not even in divorce. I've had attorneys show up to my office and say, I'm only here because the judge has forced us. We've been fighting this issue for over a year. We're not going to settle it. We're here because this is a checkbox.
Yes.
And I will respond, as long as you remain willing, as long as you remain open, if you allow me the opportunity, I'll get you there. Sure. And there hasn't been a time that we have not been able to get the attorney there. And so I've created some really strong attorney relationships because they came knocking at the door with no confidence in the mediation process, and then having experienced how we do mediation, which I do think we're unique at Brownstone Mediation Services, how we do the process and the passion that we bring, the value of just not only people walking out the door with an agreement, but also that they're walking out with an experience, and that experience entails them having better behaviors, conflict behaviors.
Probably the worst time somebody can go through is if their mom or dad dies.
Yes.
And I can think of my mom passed away about 20 years ago, and she had a small pension and a few cars, and my brother and I just talked on the phone for 5 minutes and said, oh, you take that car, I'll take that car, and we'll share the money. And it just wasn't important. But have you had some, Hatfield McCoys where the fangs are out and the brother is trying to take everything from the sister, and how do you...
Yeah, and that's so interesting that you say the brother and sister, because usually that's what it is. It's the children. Is the parents may have a will, they may have a trust, they may have done all the legal parts correctly, but the relational part, the communication, because again, mediation is all about communication. It's all about relationship skills. That's the part that the parents didn't do well. Meaning, they told Neil, son, that because they believe Neil is the more responsible child. They've already. You
listening, Stevie? Okay. All right.
They've already told you what they want and how they want it.
Right.
But they forgot to tell TeKay, the other child.
And there's hurt feelings.
There's hurt feelings. There's offense. There's my way. because at that point, mom and dad are gone. And so we now have our individual feelings of what we should do with mom's or dad's estate. And so oftentimes what I find in those estate issues is that siblings have been left property, usually it's property, and they have a different vision for that particular asset. One wants to sell it, don't want to be responsible for it, don't want to be in the family business, and the other wants to use it because that's their livelihood, that's their income, that's, they want to invest in things of that nature. So usually our job is to come in and really help them get to that beyond their position, meaning I want to get rid of it and I want to keep it. That's the position, and really help them see and understand each other's interests. Why is the other sibling so passionate about keeping it, and why is the other sibling so passionate and so have such a strong will to just no longer be involved with that particular?
And you work it out.
And they oftentimes work it out.
Work it out. And lastly, we've all seen Judge Judy.
Yes.
On television. She's still going strong.
Still going strong. She's one of the first. I think she was the model.
Yeah.
For all of court TV. Yes.
Decades. And she usually deals with sort of small claims, I guess. What are the types of small claims cases that somebody listening in would come to you for to mediate?
I'm glad you brought that up, because often individuals look at programs like Judge Judy, Judge Mathis, the People's Court, and these types of programs aren't litigation. They look like litigation because you have a judge that's in the robe, it's in a courtroom, but these are also ADR, alternative dispute resolution. It is more closely associated with what most common folk are familiar with, and that's arbitration. And so that's really in the Judge Judy is acting more in an arbiter role and helping these individuals who have a dispute and around civil issues. So most of the small claims are all civil issues. The landlord tenant, you've loaned someone some money without a strong promissory note.
Right.
All these different, the contractor you hire who didn't do the job the way you needed it to be done. So
if someone in business is providing a service for a copy machine or something, and someone doesn't make payments.
Absolutely. Collections.
Collections
is a form of a civil issue, general civil issues, and the difference with that is that in arbitration, again, same ADR, mediation's ADR, form of ADR, arbitration's a form of ADR. The arbitration is that you, the party, have agreed to allow a third party to make a decision, render a decision. Although we are qualified to do arbitration, but that's not something that we focus on, because we really want to empower you, give you the skills, confidence, and capacity to be able to resolve that issue on your own with the assistance of a professional.
So you'll make a recommendation.
We make recommendations, and not even recommendations. Although we do make recommendations, but we try to really stay in that lane of helping you get to that place.
Meaning the light bulb.
Yes,
right?
yes. And a lot of that is just
that's what I should have did all along.
Yes. And that's what the skill of a trained professional being able to ask great questions. That's what we're great at Brownstone Mediation. Asking great questions to help you come to that aha moment.
Yeah, well, we're going to dig a whole lot deeper over the course of the next several weeks. We'll go into more depth about the kinds of mediation and HR issues and so much more, and just appreciate you being part of this. And I think it's positive. It's a good way for people to kind of work things out and preserve the relationship. That's what's key.
That's an opportunity.
Let's work it out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, TeKay.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Neil.
You've been listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. She's an HR powerhouse and certified mediator in the CSRA, specializing in conflict resolution with family, business, workplace issues, and small claims disputes. Remember, save time, save money. Don't rush to litigate, mediate. Visit brownstonemediation.com.